to another Tonic Craft Kit unboxing video. Today's one is for kit number 65, which is called the Floral Gate Creator. And the idea of this die set in the kit is to kind of create those sort of gatefold design cards or some kind of like flap or corner for those sorts of cards. However, I've actually created, I think I counted 11 different cards, and I haven't even used the dies in the way that they're intended to be used. So it is a really nice versatile one, even if you don't like creating gatefold cards or, you know, that kind of thing. So let's have a look at what we get in this month's kit. I'll empty out the Nouveau stuff first. So in this month's kit, we're actually getting a tool, and this is like one of the most valuable tools that you can have in your craft stash, I think, anyway. My one is here. I'm always using it. I literally just leave it out and put it in my pen pot because I'm always grabbing for it, and you can see how dirty it's been getting. I had a red one before this as well, which I ended up giving to my mum because she didn't have one. So, but look how filthy they end up getting. But I don't think you can ever have too many of these. I think this is going to be really handy to have a second one as well, because you know what we're all like as crafters. We kind of are crafting in a space that's far too small for what we're doing. Your craft pick rolls off somewhere and then you can't find it, so it's always nice to have a spare one in the pot to save you having to spend ages searching for it. But yeah, really useful tool. And it's not the finest kind of a pick. It is on the larger side, so you wouldn't be able to use this to kind of like unblock a glue bottle or something, or one of your Nouveau drop bottles. It's more for like poking a hole through something, maybe to get your scissors in to like cut out a landlocked area when you're fussy cutting or something, or it's for poking all the pieces out of a die cut or out of the die itself, or all those kind of instances where you need something fine to kind of poke things out. Or it's also really good for when you've been like taking a die cut, for example, squishing it into your clear sticky ink pad and then adding embossing powder to it. You can use the craft pick to kind of like fish out the die cut piece. If it's got like loopy bits on it, you can kind of poke the tool underneath it and pick it out of the pile of embossing powder, and then you can also use it to hold it in position whilst you're heating, and then you're not getting your fingers anywhere near the hot embossing powder. You can be a safe distance away. So there are so many different ways of using your craft pick, and those are just a few that I've mentioned. But yeah, really useful tool to have, and I'm so thrilled that we're getting one in the craft kit. So if you've never had one before, this is going to be a really good addition to your stash. If you have one or lots and you know that you love them and you've got a new friend that's coming into crafting, then it's the perfect gift to give them as well. Yeah, I think personally I'm just going to have a second one in my pot so that I've always got one on hand, even if one's rolled off underneath a pile of something on my desk. So that's the first thing that we're getting in this month's craft kit. Then let's go with the next item. So actually not quite all of the next things, these two of the next things, there is actually an option. So you'll be getting either or, and I think that if you were getting this paper pad, you would get this ribbon to go with it, because this kind of coordinates better. And then the other paper pad, you would be getting a white ribbon to go with it instead. So I got the Blue Blossom double-sided patterned paper pad, and I got the Navy Blazer ribbon. Or you would be getting the Sweet Sorbet paper pad and the white ribbon. The Sweet Sorbet is just slightly more of like a pastel colour tone. So rather than having navy blues in there, it's more like lighter blues, but you've still got those beautiful pink tones in there as well. So everything will go together nicely with the rest of the papers that are in the kit as well. But I personally got the Blue Blossom colour pad, or patterned paper pad. It's got a lovely selection of papers in here, some gorgeous navy blue ones with a lighter blue grid kind of pattern, and then with a sort of medium blue and a dark blue polka dot on the back. You've got a medium blue kind of pinstripe sort of design with these like diamonds on the back of it. You've got pink gingham with little really faded kind of hearts on the back of it. You've got a muted kind of pink stripy pattern, and then this diamond kind of design on the back of it as well. If you want to see either the Blue Blossom or for the Sweet Sorbet in more detail. I have done a complete unboxing video on both of those colour trends when they came out as well, so if you did want to have a look at them, I do go through in more detail the patterned paper pad that's in there too. And then the ribbon that we're getting is one of the 3mm ribbons. I'm just checking that you'd definitely be a 3mm. Yeah, it's 3mm in white if you've got the Sweet Sorbet, or in navy blue if you've got the Blue Blossom. I think it could be a random mixture of the two, but I would think that they've put this ribbon with this paper pad because they go so nicely together. So those are the next two items. Then we're also getting a full-size Nouveau embellishment mousse. This is a stunning colour. I don't know why I don't have this one. I couldn't find it in my stash. So this is peony pink. So obviously I've been digging into this pot to use it, but it's a beautiful colour. I have a feeling peony pink may have been like one of the first pinks that came out. I feel like there was like aquamarine, and then a light green, and a light pink and a light purple, and I think this might have been the pink from those original kind of colours. So you might not have seen it before, or if you have seen it before, it might be an old pot that you've maybe used up, or that's, you know, coming to the end of its life or something. So a really nice addition to your stash as well, and this beautiful pink colour will go nicely with whatever paper pad you get too. And in my tutorial video I'm going to be showing how to use some of the dies from the die set to create your own stencils, and then we're going to use some Nouveau embellishment mousse with them as well. And then you're also getting a full-size Nouveau drop bottle, and this one is the Carnation Pink, so it's another really beautiful pink tone, and it goes really nicely. This is maybe slightly more of a purpley pink, but they do go really nicely together when you use them in a background. I actually have a spare background left over here where I've used them both together, and you can see how nicely they do coordinate together as well. So those are the two full-sized Nouveau products that we're getting. Then if I move on to the papers, and I'll move the box out of the way as well. So with all of the Craft Perfect papers that we're getting in this kit, we've got a lovely selection as always. I love that Tonic give you a selection of classic cards, specialty cards, cotton handmade papers, glitter cards and everything, because it means that you can try out one sheet of them, and if you do really love how they're working, or they go with your style, or, you know, all sorts of different factors that might come into it, you can then go off and buy a full packet of 5 sheets of it, which is really lovely, or 10 sheets of classic card as well. But I think having a sheet of glitter card, they often give us a sheet of glitter card, and sometimes you're a little bit skeptical about like how well glitter card would die cut, but Tonic stuff is absolutely fantastic for die cutting. So if you've never tried that before, do sacrifice a little bit of your glitter paper and give it a go with some die cutting, because I think you'll be very impressed by the results that you get with that. But anyway, the Texture Craft Perfect that we're getting in this month's kit, it will coordinate with both of those different paper pads, and we're getting the Blossom Pink, which is this gorgeous paler pink kind of colour, which is what I had used those two Nouveau products onto for this one. Then we're also getting Cornflower Blue, which is a gorgeous blue. It's like a perfect sky blue kind of colour. I love this one. I always forget what it's called though, but I do really love this one, the Cornflower Blue. Then we're also getting a sheet of the navy blue cardstock. Goes really nicely if you're getting the Blue Blossom paper pad, but also you could use it with the Sweet Sorbet to kind of deepen up the colour tones as well. It will work really nicely whichever paper pad you get. And then we're actually getting 2 sheets of the raspberry pink cardstock, so we've actually got 2 sheets here as well. So if one of your designs maybe requires, you know, a bunch of die cutting, or you're making a bigger card, or I don't know, all sorts of different things that you might be doing with it, you have got 2 sheets of this one, which is really lovely to have. Then the next 2 sheets that we're getting are some of the holographic mirror card. So if you haven't seen this before, it's absolutely wonderful. The original colour was Hollow Waves, which was like a silver version with the rainbow. Then they brought out Inca Gold, which was a gold version with the rainbow. And then they brought out a whole collection of different colours where you get that beautiful colour tone, but cameras in particular really pick up the rainbow. From the angle I can see it, this is pink and this is just blue. But when you get it from a certain angle, the light shining on it, or specifically when you are filming, like I usually am, you can really see that rainbow kind of coming out in it as well. So really, really gorgeous card. And we're getting 1 sheet of their Petal Pink, which is the top one, and then 1 sheet of Tidal Wave, which is the deeper blue. If you've had any of their cardstock before, the Tidal Wave is the deeper blue holographic cardstock that they do. Then you're also getting a sheet of their Speciality cotton handmade paper, and this one is called Hailstorm. So it's a gorgeous, really subtle blue colour, and it's got that beautiful, well, kind of like hailstone sort of look to it, or could be snow, it could be... I think if you colour it gold, it kind of looks like a bunch of coins, and you could put it in a treasure chest. Not that that goes with this kit, but that's just another idea that I think this would work really nicely for. You can also use your mousses and stuff over the top of this as well, or if you turn it over, I know you're working on the debossed kind of side, but you can actually colour this side of the paper easier as well. And in the past, I don't know if this design would work particularly well, but in the past I have shown how you can spray inks or mica mists or sparkle sprays onto this, and then press your card onto it and pull off like a print with the pattern. So that kind of thing can work with the cotton handmade papers as well. And then finally we have got a beautiful sheet of their glitter card, and this one is the candy floss colour, so really gorgeous pink, and it's got like lighter pink and almost like iridescent-y, almost like a yellowy goldy kind of colour in there. Really, really pretty, this one. I love the ones that have a mixture of glitter on there, because it means you can really tie in other colours on your card project. But really, really pretty. I think you can just about kind of see the variation in the different colours of glitter. From afar, it does just look pink, but up close you really can see all of those different colours of glitter that are in there. So that is all of your papers and cardstock that you're getting in this month's craft kit. And then finally we're on to the dies and the stamps, and I've got the sticker this month. So Floral Gate Creator is your little sticker. I love these flowers that are in the die set, they're absolutely gorgeous. So let's take all of these out, and I've put mine on a magnetic sheet. Yours won't come on a magnetic sheet in the kit, but an A5 sheet will fit perfectly in your folder, so it's a nice way to store them. So let's have a look at the stamp set first. Now the stamp set is pretty much just sentiments, apart from this one beautiful floral stamp. You can see I've been stamping it in pink because it's stained it a little bit pink, but I think this would look wonderful heat embossed, even if it's just like white onto white or clear onto white or a sparkly clear onto white. It would make like a lovely background for a wedding card or something. But really, really pretty design, this one, and that's kind of emulated through the dies as well. So if you want to bring in stamped elements to go with the dies, then you've got the perfect little floral stamp there as well. And then you've got tons of sentiments, and I will show you the dies that they coordinate with. But basically all of these kind of stacked sentiments will go in like a gift tag kind of die, and then all of the longer ones will go in sort of more of like a banner kind of die. But what they all say is, the 4 longer ones, they say, "You will always be special to me, believe in yourself, happy birthday, and we're wishing you every success." So those are the long ones. And then all of these little stacked ones here are "Friendship is forever, just for you, sending love and wishes your way, celebrate, it's your day, I'm always here for you, congratulations, you deserve every success, remember that you are loved and you are amazing, remember that." So really gorgeous sentiments that you can send to people just for, you know, a random reason, and to make sure they're feeling okay and stuff. Really nice kind of sentiments that would be perfect for those sorts of cards. Or you do have birthday in there as well. You don't have a thank you, but I'm pretty sure some of them you could maybe use as a sub-sentiment with a thank you on as well. But yeah, gorgeous selection of sentiments in there. And then if I just show you the dies that coordinate with those, you've got this banner die here with some piercing around it, and that will go round all of these. You can do some partial die cutting to make the banner smaller, or you could just choose to stamp your sentiment at one end or the other of the banner and have it hanging off your card as well. They've kind of done it so you've got that sort of option to be able to do it as well. But you can see how all 4 of those will fit really nicely into the height of that kind of little banner, and you can see that all of the stamping is within that kind of aperture of the metal, so it means that you can stamp and die cut, or die cut and stamp. It doesn't particularly matter which way round you do it, which is always lovely as well, because you might change your mind and decide to, you know, add a different sentiment or something. and you've always got that option to have already got a die cut there, and then you can stamp a different one on top of it. So those are the ones that coordinate with that die. And then there's also this die within the die set. I'll show you it in its entirety in a minute, but it has this extra panel piece which is kind of like where the sentiment would go. And so all of these, depending, obviously you need it this way around, but depending which way up you create the gift tag to be, all of these sentiments will fit in that one way up or another. You can kind of decide which way up you think looks better, but all of those will fit inside that one. So a really lovely extra kind of tag design that will house all of those different sentiments, so you can really play around with whatever sentiment you want to put on your card. Okay, then I'll zoom you in a little bit to have a look at the die set, but you can see these gorgeous designs that are in here. Beautiful flowers, lovely like leaves and foliage coming off of them, and I absolutely adore this quatrefoil design that they've included in here as well, just like parts of it showing to complete the design, but really love that. And that is fantastic for paper piecing as well. All of these are actually brilliant for paper piecing, and I've done 2 cards using that method for these 2 designs here, and this is the one that I will show in the tutorial video of how to create your own stencil as well. So the main idea of this die set is that gate card creator kind of design, and often with gate cards or gatefold cards, you find that they don't want to stay shut, or it's really difficult to kind of create a sort of closure mechanism without literally just like wrapping some ribbon around it, or, you know, having to change your design to hide where you're sticking something to kind of keep it closed. But in this die set, they've given you 2 different closure mechanisms. As I said before, I haven't actually used any of these dies in the way that they're intended to be used. I have just gone like completely random and just done my normal style of cards without even thinking about like the gatefold kind of style. But if you are doing those kind of cards, you've got 2 different options of how to kind of hold the card together. Maybe you even want to use these on some other kind of project as well, maybe some sort of like interactive lift flap. You could even do that with some of these as well, and then use this as like a closure mechanism. But you have this one here which has a little score line there, and the idea is that you would have 2 of these, and then you can stick up to that score line underneath your card project, and then you can use the 2 holes on like the 2 halves. They could be further apart, they could overlap together, they could bend upwards and stick straight upwards from your card, and then you can use some ribbon to tie them together. And then this design, again, you would use this portion to stick it to the card, and then these elements here, you would cut 2 of them and they would slot into each other. So one would be up one way, one would be up the other way, and they would slot into each other to create that kind of locking mechanism, almost like an X shape, where these 2 pieces, so this little cloudy portion of this one, on the other one it will slot through here and appear over this side, so it will kind of give you almost that quatrefoil kind of shape. And then you could even use one of these fall away pieces to kind of decorate that as well if you wanted to. So 2 little locking closure mechanisms, and I'm sure Ruth or Tonic themselves will have shown you lots of ways of using these little mechanisms and card examples with them on as well. So those are the 2 mechanisms for closing your cards. Then as I showed before, we've got that little banner that goes with all of those sentiments, and then this is the other die that goes with the sentiments as well. I really enjoyed this one actually. I didn't use it as a tag in the end. I actually cut these 3 together to give a design that was like a tag but actually had the aperture in it as well, and that beautiful foliage design cut into it. And then I actually snipped off this whole portion and just used these as 3 separate panels on a card, flipping them one way up, one the other way, one the other way. I'll show you that one later. But just to kind of create an overall design and not even using it as a tag, and then still using this kind of area to add the sentiment onto as well. And I was paper piecing these gorgeous little flowers. And when you are doing that kind of a card and you're paper piecing, you could, if you wanted to, you know, have your outline piece with all 3 of them cut together, and then just use this die that doesn't have the outside cutting edge to cut all of your pieces to be able to infill with the different colours. But if you actually cut all 3 of them together still, you then have multiple outlines of this little flower to use on another card as well, and I will show you an example using that too. So think about that when you're doing any paper piecing kind of designs. yes, the way Tonic do dies, you do just have that verso interior piece, which you could just use to cut, you know, your little pieces out to place back in. But if you do use the outside edges with them, you then have those extra pieces to use on more projects and create more cards from them as well. So do think about that if you're doing paper piecing designs with these, because they work really nicely for that kind of design. But that is the gorgeous little gift tag there. Then we've also got this one over here, which is one of the gatefold kind of designs. And the way they have done this, they've given you the outside edge for the floral piece, but here the cut lines just go off into nowhere. So you can actually use this to create, maybe you've got a larger panel of card in the middle and you're cutting this on one end, measuring between them and then cutting it on the other end as well. Or you can actually use this into your card to create an aperture and then just use your craft knife to finish that final edge onto it. You could cut this against the fold of a card and have like the fold over here where there's no cut line and create a little shaped card as well. You could just cut two of these and stick these to the back of a card to still create that gatefold kind of design, but without having to measure between the two pieces. Or I'm sure there's lots of like different interactive kind of cards that you could do with them. I'm not particularly that good at interactive cards. I mainly stick to shaker cards when it's an interactive kind of card, but I know you have those kind of ones that you like pull something and like an easel pops up. I have a feeling this kind of die might look really nice on that kind of a card as well. So I'm sure there are tons of ways of using a die like this that doesn't have this back edge. And actually, if you're a memory book fan, a lot of memory book page dies look like this. So this could be a fun shaped page, or it could be a lovely decorative insert between a couple of pages or something as well. And you could use this portion to incorporate it into your spine, maybe punch holes in it and put it in some kind of like ring bound project that you're creating with other memory book dies and stuff as well. So I really do think these are lovely versatile ones. But not only do you have that outside edge that has that missing cut line on it, you also have the beautiful interior panel as well, which again is just verso, so you can just cut this into your card if you want to as well and it be a decorative pattern. I don't think I actually did that in the end, but that would definitely be another way of using it. You could just have one in the centre, maybe do a shaker card behind it. You could have one at the top, one at the bottom. If you felt like it needed an outline to it, you could cut this into the card, create a shaker card behind it, but then cut these two together to give you that sort of, you know, the whole thing cut out with the edge pieces on there as well. Snip off the bottom and then stick that back over the top. So you've created a shaker card that was much easier to kind of put together, but then you've also brought the outlines back into the detail so you can really see exactly what this is and gorgeous flowers and stuff. So tons of ways of using these, and also that can just be a stencil by itself as well. In the tutorial I'm showing you this die as a stencil, but there's nothing to stop you using this die or even this little flower as your stencil as well. I just thought this one was quite a nice one to show you how you can replicate this 4 times to create a lovely large square stencil, but these ones would definitely work as stencils as well. Then this one is very similar, the way that it's got that missing cut line, so exactly the same with the way the blades sort of stop here, and they give you that ability to do you know, one side of a gatefold, measure between, do the other side of the gatefold, you know, just using them as a half panel to add on to it. Again, memory book kind of wise, maybe you don't want to use this as a page, but you want some kind of like floral flip in your book. You could just score along here, stick that down, hide that underneath something else and have a little flip that flips up and is hiding some journaling, or maybe you're using it as like a little kind of pocket. All sorts of different things that you can use this for. So I think they're such lovely versatile kind of dies. Actually, even in a memory book, either of these two, cut that into a page, and then obviously because this is still secured down the bottom, this could just become a tuck spot where you could tuck tickets or some loose photographs or something in there as well. So all sorts of different ways you can use these kind of gatefold creator kind of dies. And then we also have the beautiful pattern that goes in there as well, and this was the other one that I paper pieced, and I did actually put 2 of them, so I did one up this way and then cut another one up this way. And when I was doing the flowers, I chose 2 pinks for the flowers from the cardstock, and then on one side I did these 2 as one specific pink, and then on the other side I did the middle one, so I only had to cut the flowers once from each pink colour, and I managed to utilise the other pieces in the opposite flowers. I'll show you that as well. But yeah, you've got that beautiful design. And then the final one that is in here, it actually consists of 3 dies, and this is actually a corner die. So if you've been a fan of Tonic for a while, there is quite a collection of these corner dies. Some of them have been like hidden within a showcase or a designer's choice, or possibly another craft kit as well. But also a while back they did do a few sets where you got a couple of different corners in there. I think maybe there was 3 or 4 different sets, and each set had 2 corners in. But if you're a real fan of those kind of dies, this is another one to add into that collection. Or if you've never seen them before, this is a great one to add into your stash. It's always useful to have this kind of die, because the way it's designed, it's sort of similar to kind of like a gatefold creator, but it's missing the cut line on 2 edges, but then they've added on the glue tabs. So you can actually fold these under and stick them, and it creates like a little corner pocket. So you could put this on the inside of a card and have a gift card poking out of it. Again, memory books, it'd be really useful for that. You could do 2 across a card and have something, you know, straddled between them. Maybe even use it as like a giant photo corner. If you were putting them on a scrapbook page, for example, you could have one big photo corner down here, one big one up here, and it would hold like a massive, you know, like 8x10 photo onto your 12x12 scrapbook page or something. So really, really useful kind of corner design. I'm sure there's also a lot of kind of fancy, intricate kind of card designs that you could create with these corner dies, or even just using them as kind of like a little pocket piece that could maybe be some kind of like place setting at Christmas. Like maybe cut 2 of these, take the glue tabs off of one, and then use the glue tabs, fold them round, and use this solid piece without the glue tabs on the other side perhaps, and it could be like a little pocket that has a bit of card sticking out, and it says someone's name on it, and it's like a little pretty thing, and maybe you've put like a scratch card or a lottery ticket, or some kind of funny anecdote or something from you and your friends. I think there's so many ways of using these corner dies. So that's like the main outside piece, and then to go on the inside of that, instead of having your outside edge, you know, be interpreted by this sort of main piece, like with the gatefold creator kind of pieces, you've actually got the separate outside edge. So this makes this die versatile in different ways as well. This could be an aperture on your card, like this, and you don't have to finish off like the final side with your craft knife like you would for either of these two. You can just have a triangular aperture in your card, or you can just cut this straight into your card as well, like you could with those details. You can paper piece this, or if you watch my tutorial video, which will be out tomorrow, I show you exactly how you can turn this into a stencil as well, cutting 4 of them together to create a large square stencil that you can use with your Nuvo mousse, your Nuvo drops, or any like ink pads that you have, any of your sprays that you have, like your mica mist or your sparkle sprays. You can do all sorts of things with these, and any of these would turn into stencils nicely, but I just thought this one would work really nicely for the tutorial to show you that 4 kind of repeated die cutting around it, and how to sort of get equal distances between each of your die cuts as well. But you do have that outside edge for this one, which is really, really handy. So that is all of the dies and all of the Nuvo and all of the cardstock from this month's craft kit, and I'll be back in 1 second to show you all of the samples that I've created. So I've got 11 cards to show you, and these first 4 cards, yeah, these first 4 ones, I think it's just the 4, yeah, these are using the stencil, and this is what I'm going to show you in the tutorial video that will be up tomorrow. So this is showing how you can use that corner die and cut it 4 times to create your own square stencil, and it gives you something that looks like this. This one has been through it a bit because I used it for all of the different techniques that I was doing, but if you only do a couple of the techniques, specifically this one still gives you a gorgeous die cut to still use. It was when I added on Nuvo drops and was using those through the stencil as well that it kind of got a little bit more beaten up, but I do think you could still use this. It's a little bit like tatty around the edges where the product's kind of built up, but you could still make use of this for another project as well. Maybe if you've got a square die, you cut it out and have it as a square patterned panel, put another colour of patterned paper or something behind it. Anywhere that's got messed up, like here it kind of pulled off some of the excess product that was on there, you could like use your sentiment to cover that area as well. So you could definitely make use of the stencil itself too. But this first one was using the gorgeous peony pink mousse with a little bit of sponge really thinly through that stencil onto one of the patterned papers. And you can see the difference in the colour. So some of the mousses depending what colour you put them onto, they will show, not show different colours like a dream drop would, but they will show more of their actual colour or less of their actual colour. So because this has gone onto a darker colour, it's really showing off that beautiful pearlescence, but there's only like hints of that bright pink, or the sort of medium kind of pink, of the peony pink, but it gives a really lovely effect, and it still like blocks out the patterned paper from behind, which is really nice. And just a really simple card, like really simple, just taking one sheet of the patterned paper, putting a little bit of mousse through your homemade stencil, and you've instantly got a beautiful card. And I thought this would make a nice little congratulations card. I've ended up using almost all of the different sentiments from the set as well, considering I made 11 cards. I think it was maybe like 12 sentiments, maybe. I haven't actually counted, but yeah, loads of different sentiments to mix and match whatever card you're creating. And obviously this kind of card could have been landscape as well. It doesn't have to be in portrait orientation, and you could have placed the stencil in a different position too, but I just showed you this one, sort of making it almost the centre. I do like things slightly off centre, so I have gone slightly off more to this side, but you can also just stencil it onto your 6x6 piece and then decide afterwards how you want to trim it down as well. So that's the first one. Then this one is a very similar design, but I have turned it on its side to make it look different. But this was actually going through the stencil with a little bit of mousse left on the sponge and the drops as well. So you might not think that you can stencil with your Nuvo drops, but you can. And obviously their colour is going to show up much better onto white card. So you can see the difference between, I know this has got drops in as well, but you probably, you would have got less of an effect with drops. It would have maybe just made it look glossy rather than actually having much pink colour to it if you had used the drops instead of the mousse onto this card. But going on to white, you really see that beautiful delicate or medium kind of pink sort of colour from them. And then also on this one, I've put a strip of one of the patterned papers on there as well, just to sort of draw your eye in to where the little sentiment is. And I've used the Celebrate sentiment. Or actually, you might also be thinking all of these sentiments look different from the stamps, and that's because the sentiments are designed to kind of fit on that little gift tag die. However, I do like to have borders around my sentiments. It's just like a personal preference kind of thing. So I just take a fine black pen and draw a scribbly border around it. But if you don't like that look, then obviously you don't have to do that. You can just cut it into a rectangle around them, maybe use a die that you have if you love having that beautiful die cut edge to things. I mean, you could just use the tag die from the set, although it might be a bit of an odd shape just to have on this little card, but you know, there's all sorts of ways of doing it. I just like adding a little border around mine, but definitely do whatever your style kind of is for adding your sentiment on. But that's just another variation. Then this one is actually, this is why this little piece of pink is missing off the stencil there, because this was actually, after I had done this with the mousse and the drops through, I took the stencil and flipped it over and pressed it onto the background. So you can still get those kind of techniques as well. It's very patchy and grungy and distressed, but you can still get those sort of techniques from a handmade stencil or a homemade stencil as well. And then this bottom portion here was showing how I used the mousse thickly through the stencil onto that raspberry cardstock. And I definitely could have used the coordinating die to cut these out, but I had made my stencil like this, so I had done that entire piece thickly with the mousse through it. And when you have your embellishment mousse, you probably could have die cut it. I probably could have put that, you know, basic shape back around it and die cut it out, but you might risk squashing your mousse because it is like a little bit three-dimensional. It's only going to be as dimensional really as the depth of the stencil, so it's only like a little bit of cardstock kind of dimension. But I just decided to cut this straight with a long bladed pair of scissors and just do a wiggly line across these. So this was the entire piece like this, and I just cut those pieces out. I think I have the other bits somewhere off to the side here. So you've got extra spare pieces here. A couple of them went a little bit blobby, so I did pick the two best ones for this. But yeah, you could also just trim out that little flower as well if you wanted to. Let's have a go at that. So you can just bring your scissors in, and obviously you don't have a die for this portion, so you would have to fussy cut this one, but you could definitely just come around and trim this out and give yourself a beautiful flower. If you have some other mousses or a glacier paste in your stash as well, you could have stenciled this with a green, and then you could come back in and cut out the little leafy portions as well, and then you could actually have the pink and the green together. But, you know, whatever you kind of want to do really, there's so many options with all of these different bits and pieces. I do love a kit like this, that you get a few bits of Nuvo and you get such versatile dies in there, because it really gives you so many different options of what you can do, and you can just cut out a beautiful little embellishment mousse flower there as well. You could put that over the top of that, raise it up and make it three-dimensional. You could have it somewhere else on the card to bring the flowery design across the card as well. So all sorts of different things that you can do with using your mousse thickly through a stencil, or this could have been one of the thin applications as well, and you can just cut around them and give yourself those individual flowers. And then this one is the final way using that homemade stencil, but I didn't think that this would work. I was just kind of trying this on the off chance that it worked. But you know, you can emboss a stencil normally. You just take your, whatever the sandwich is for your die cutting machine that you would use to emboss a die, you take that same sandwich. So for the tangerine, it is the green plate, your green squidgy mat, and your white plate. And you can actually emboss with your cardstock stencil. And I actually did this with this one. So with this one that's got all of this muck on it, I actually did this card with it because it was on the, I think it was on the back of it. It might have been on the front of it. It didn't even transfer anything. But this impression was from this messy homemade stencil that has already been used to create like 4 different backgrounds as well. So I absolutely adore this. I think this turned out so well, and I did it at an angle rather than being like straight up and down. I did it more of a cross kind of design, and then I just came back in with a tiny little bit of the mousse on my finger and rubbed it over to really pick out the detail. But you could have left that white on white and maybe done something like this and added a couple of flowers on there with that kind of technique as well. I just really loved how this one turned out, and I thought it was a really cool technique to show. So if you want to see how this one works, then check out my tutorial video tomorrow, because I will be showing exactly what sandwich you use and how to run it through your machine and everything to get this kind of impression. But I really love how that one turned out. Then moving on, the next one that I have done, so I had an idea for a card that I will show you the sort of leftovers of that idea, that it didn't quite work. But then I had this die cut left over from that previous idea that didn't quite work out. So I thought, well, I could do something similar to that other idea. So I cut an aperture using that smaller gatefold die. I used my craft knife and a ruler to cut it out and ended up with this white piece plus that extra white piece from another card that I was doing. So I stuck those two together to give a really thick kind of die cut, to give it really like heavy body to it, so that I could just stick it on this side and it wouldn't matter that it was loose over here. And then to go in the background, I did one of my all-time favourites, squishy kind of techniques, and this one is using the mousse and the drops from the kit. And all I did for this one, you get some of the mousse, you get your palette knife or one of your silicone craft knives, you take one piece of your cardstock, and this is the Blossom Pink from the kit. I just put a few little blobs everywhere, so scoop some out of your pot, little blobs all over. You can spread it out a little bit if you want to as well, kind of like putting thick butter on toast or something, or chocolate spread on toast. You know, spread it out like that, and then literally with the drops, squeeze it all over, random, doesn't matter where you're putting it. Take another piece of the Blossom Pink, squish them together, pull them apart, and you get this beautiful background, and that's what's behind there. Also, I know I was trying to just use what was in the kit, but also at this point, when it was still wet, I could sprinkle glitter in, or confetti, or, you know, whatever you feel like you want to put in there, but I was just sticking to the Nuvo that was in the kit, so I just did it as it was, and then I placed it behind this aperture, had a spare bit left over, so I actually used that here. So if you're not very good with your craft knife and this bit was wobbly, or maybe you missed the ruler and you went off and there's like a jagged bit underneath there, it doesn't matter at all, because you can hide it with a little strip of the extra background. And then the original idea, which I'll show you in a minute, I was going landscape with the card, but then as I was putting it together, I was like, well, why not turn it portrait? Even though those flowers maybe look like more they should be landscape, there's nothing to stop you putting them portrait. So I just switched the orientation of the card, and I've done "We're wishing you every success" as the sentiment on that one, and I kind of put it at a right angle to that strip. I kind of felt like that made the strip look more purposeful as well, rather than just sort of being randomly there. Kind of makes it look more purposeful. And then finished off with some Nuvo drops as well, considering we have that one in the kit, and it works absolutely perfectly with the background that we created as well. Then Another really simple card. This is that beautiful stamp. So the beautiful stamp that we get in there, and all I did was just pick a pink ink pad from my stash. I think I used Lotus Flower from the Nouveau sets of ink pads. Stamped it all over multiple different times, twisting it as I went, just to create an overall background, and then I literally just took some of the mousse, watered it down and splattered it on with a paintbrush, and it just gives a beautiful subtle kind of effect, really quick and easy to do. Any of your ink pads that you have, maybe ones like your Distress inks or Distress oxide, then you could like spray over them afterwards and make them bleed out as well, or you could use a paintbrush to sort of like bring in the colour and add colour to them. You could watercolour them in, all sorts of different ideas that you can do with that beautiful little stamp, but I just went for a quick and easy all over stamped background for this one. And then I've done "You are amazing, remember that," or "You are so amazing, remember that," as the little sentiment on this one, and again I've drawn a little box around it too. Then this was that original idea that I was telling you about. So this card here was kind of born after this card didn't work out as I was intending it to. So I was thinking what was going to be my tutorial video. I was going to show you how to iris fold and then put the decorative panel back over the top, but it didn't look right. I think having the two different colours of spiral of iris folding, it was just too busy behind this die cut and it just didn't look right, which is why this card ended up coming into life. But this was the original one, showing you some iris folding on there, so I'm sure that'll end up being a tutorial at some point down the line when something works out better for it. But because we had the pattern papers in the kit, I thought it's perfect for doing like iris folding kind of techniques with them. I don't follow the rules with iris folding. I think the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to print out a template, and then you stick the pieces to that template that you've printed out. But what I do is I put adhesive behind the aperture and then I stick the pieces on the back of the aperture, and I did kind of fudge this one a little bit because my 4 pieces weren't going to quite meet when they went round, so I fudged these 2 here. So technically the first one of the iris fold was this one in this dark colour, but I kind of added those 2 in underneath to make it into more of a spiral. I don't think you can really tell actually, it kind of looks like it was meant to be like that, but yeah, it kind of goes into a spiral. It got a little bit messy in the middle, and that's why I thought the sentiment would go perfectly. But this aperture, even though it is supposed to have those flowers in the middle, I actually just decided it looked nice just as an aperture, even though it's like a really random kind of pattern. I think it is symmetrical, so it just looked quite nice. I don't actually, maybe it's not quite symmetrical. This looks slightly different up here, but it's almost symmetrical, and I just thought it looked actually quite nice as an aperture, so I decided to leave it and turn it into a card anyway, even though I wasn't putting the detail back on the top. But yeah, I just thought it was another idea of showing you how you could do this, and you could even do this with the longer border or with the triangle as well, and do some iris folding too. So let me know in the comments if you would be interested in how I do my iris folding, because I know it's not the proper way you're supposed to do it. But yeah, I can do that as a tutorial later down the line as well. So that's that card. Then the next 2 cards are paper piecing. So this one is using the large border die twice opposite each other, and there is a little join in the middle. Well, I did it on the same piece of card, but there's a little white gap between them in the middle because I still wanted all of these quatrefoil pieces to fit in, and if I had buttered them right up against each other and they'd sort of like cut into each other, then the pieces wouldn't fit back in, so you do have to kind of leave a gap between them. But that is the first one that I did with the paper piecing, and originally I was just going to have the white piece kind of floating with all of the pieces in there, and I was just going to raise that up on 3D foam and add it onto a card. But because I'd already cut all of these pieces out, you know, obviously when you die cut you're going to have that waist shape around the edge, and I thought, oh hang on, maybe if I put the light blue waist shape back around the edge it would look really nice. So that's what I decided to do. But then because I hadn't planned that before I had die cut, the edge of it was like one of them was going off at a proper angle and there was like hardly any card around the edge of it. So just to disguise that and make it look more intentional, I just went round with my scissors and just randomly cut different angles all the way around, and I really like how that turned out. And then I felt like because I'd used because I was kind of like picking out the blue colour, and because I'd used some of the Tidal wave on there as well, I felt like maybe it needed a little edge of that, so I just stuck the piece that I had already trimmed around the edge of onto a piece of the Tidal wave card, and then just trimmed around that as well with the same random sort of geometric-y kind of border to it. So I think it turned out so nicely, this one, and it just goes to show how beautiful they look when they're paper pieced, all of these gorgeous flowers. And this is what I was talking about, how you know, this flower actually came out of the same die cut as these two flowers, but I swapped them over, so I only had to do one pink petal die cut and one of the glitter card die cuts as well, and then I just swapped them over for the pink. I had to cut 2 of the navy blue to do all of the foliage, and then I also had to cut 2 of the lighter blue cornflower and 2 of the tidal wave as well to get all of the relevant pieces to go in there. But as I was saying earlier, make sure you use those outside edges when you're doing all of these extra die cuts for all of your pieces, because you might then realise, I think it looks nice adding that waist piece around the edge of the one that you're working on, but also you have all of these bits left over, and the next couple of cards after these two are all of the leftover pieces that I've used. And for this one, I wanted to show some ribbon on there because I hadn't used the ribbon on any of the others. So I just put 3 pieces across. They're not going all the way around. I wanted to save the ribbon. So I just put a little bit of tape behind here and then just stuck a length that just wrapped around, and then did it 3 different times before I stuck it on the tidal wave cardstock. And then you've got that beautiful ribbon detail. And then for the sentiment, instead of doing the scribbly border around this one, I matted it onto the glitter card because I felt like it tied the glitter card in really nicely then as well. And then this is the other paper pieced card that I did. So this is using that tag, but snipping this piece off here. I didn't really mind that it was like a half little notch coming out of there. I thought it kind of looked like part of the design, so I did end up leaving that. And then for these ones, I cut each of them 3 times from the different colours. So I cut 3 from white using all 3 dies together. Then I also cut 3 from the light blue using all 3 dies together. And then for these portions here, for the navy blue and for the pink petal, I cut 3 of each. But I just used a scrap of card that covered this portion because I knew I didn't need this kind of piece of it. So I just used a scrap of card, but I still had the 3 dies stuck together so that I got the edges so that I can use them on another card as well. So that's how I did that one. And then this excess piece is one of these pieces that was left over from the previous card. So the one that I'd used to cut the pink petal there, I took this piece, pretend this is a pink petal piece as well, and I actually just placed a bit of it here, stuck it down, trimmed off, and then I placed another bit down here, stuck it down and then trimmed it off. And then I had parts of this flower left in the middle, so I actually just came round and trimmed round some of this and then used that last bit of the flower over there as well, just to add that gorgeous pink petal across the rest of the card and fill in some of the white detail in the background. And then for the sentiment, I did Just For You, but because I'd put 3 tags on here, I thought I'll just triplicate the sentiment to fill in the space, and I've done the scribbly borders around them as well. So that's that card. Then the next one, there's so many cards in this one, I'm sorry if this video is really long, but this one is using the waist from this paper pieced card. So as I was telling you, I cut 2 of the navy blue and I cut 2 of the tidal wave, and this is the waist of those. So this is the tidal wave on top of the navy blue to give a little drop shadow, and I've put one either side of this, and I moved them to different degrees. So instead of putting them directly above and below, this one's slightly further this way, this one's slightly further this way. So when you put them on a diagonal card, it kind of fills the card really nicely. And for the sentiment, I just cut a width of the glitter card, and then I just cut another width of white card. All of the sentiments actually, I ended up using scraps. You know, when I die cut when I trim an A4 piece of white card into my like 4 little panels, I'm usually left with like a skinny strip of cardstock, and I keep them off to the side so that I can use them for my sentiments, and they come in really handy for this kind of a project when you're putting loads of different sentiments on all your different cards. And then for this one, instead of just doing Believe in Yourself right in the middle, I thought, why not make it look like a printed ribbon or something? So I just stamped Believe in Yourself 3 times across it, and then when I came to stick it onto the card, I sort of moved it up and down to kind of decide where I wanted it to be. And funnily enough, it pretty much still spells like YO yourself. So it worked out quite nicely that you can still read the sentiment twice, but it falls off one side and comes back on the other side. So I really like how that one turned out, and that was just the waste pieces. But if you didn't want to do paper piecing, this could just be your intentional card as well. But if you're going to cut all of these beautiful cardstocks, you might as well get another card out of it. And if I had been, if I'd had more time, or I'd, you know, really been thinking about it, I could have then created this card in the opposite colours. So these could have been blue flowers. I could have added in some pink foliage, mixing and matching between the two colours of the pink, and then I could have done this central piece, mixing and matching the colours of the pink as well, to create another version of the card too. So yeah, when you're doing that paper piecing, you really can get a lot out of it, and then you still have all of your outside pieces left afterwards. Then final card is the leftovers from this paper piece card. So for this one, I actually created a wreath with those beautiful flower designs. So I took the 3 navy blue ones, and I actually, to get the backing pieces for all of these, I took the tag die and that interior die that the sentiment fits into, but not the flower, take them back together how they were when I had been cutting the flower in them as well, and again just put a scrap of card across that bottom bit, and then all I had to do was trim across. Oh no, I just had to trim off the little tag outline from the edge of it, from these 2 pieces here. I just had to trim that off, and then I got the solid piece to go behind these flowers. So I kept the light blue onto Tidal Wave, and I kept 3 of those and did them all as the full motif. Then I did the navy blue onto the Cornflower, and I did the 3 of those and kept them all intact with all of their leaves on there. And then for the pink ones, I did the pink petal onto the raspberry cardstock, but when I had stuck them both together, I then trimmed off the foliage, so they're just 3 flowers for that one. And then I've done You Will Always Be Special to Me as the little sentiment across there, and I finished off with a few random little pink Nouveau drops from the carnation pink that we're getting in the kit as well. So yeah, those are all the cards that I've created. But actually, as I've been chucking things off to the side here, this leftover background that I did, you could definitely bring in a few more of these leftover pieces, maybe even actually do the gatefold kind of design with one of these sort of leftover background pieces and bring 2 of these in. If you cut this piece just using the outside edge, you'd have the solid piece to go behind this, so it would stand out more against the background, and then you could do some kind of gatefold mechanism for this. You could bring in like a tonal sort of one with the glitter and make it sort of really blend into it and be a really subtle background. Maybe bring in another like scripty font kind of sentiment from your stash to go on top of something like this. This could be coming in from the side like that. This could be coming as a diagonal from one of the sides as well. You can snip in, take all of these different flowers out as well, like we were doing with that mousse flower. We could even bring the mousse flower into there as well. I know these are kind of slightly different scales to each other, but you could place some of these over the top of these as well, or you could have made this into a stencil and done these flowers from this one and trimmed them out and put them back on the top. So many different ideas. But as well as all of those, I also kept off to the side to show you my leftovers. So I have made 11 cards. I've still got 1 background, and I've still got a few die cuts, plus another quarter of this mousse background as well. And I still have all of these pieces left here. I did also do this one. I did a little bit of mousse. Oh, this was pouncing the mousse and trying to give it a bit more texture rather than doing it smoothly, but it didn't stand out enough on the patterned paper. But if you do something like this and it doesn't stand out enough, get your ink pads. If you ink over this, the pattern will pop out. I might even show you that in the tutorial video as well. So yeah, all of these are my leftover pieces, and I've got all of those cards out of it, plus all these leftovers, plus most of the paper pad, because I only pinched 1 or 2 sheets of each of the papers out of there. So many different bits and pieces that you've got left over to create with that. Obviously you're going to have your pokey tool forever, and then you've also got your gorgeous Nouveau products that are going to last for ages as well. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this unboxing video of Tonic Craft Kit number 65, which is the Floral Gate Creator. And even though I haven't made any gate cards to show you, or gatefold cards, I'm hoping you enjoyed this video with all of these different samples of ways that you can use all of these bits and pieces. And if you're interested in seeing turning the dies into a stencil, then do check out my tutorial video as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!